So we've got director Brian. Please join us on stage. We have Mr. Liam Cunningham. We have Pollyanna McIntosh. And last but not least, we have Hanna Stanbridge. Okay. Oh, you've got a mic. Great. Colin?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sim. That was fantastic, guys. Congratulations to all involved. That was just, it's one of the best things about festivals is that you get to see something original. You know, you get to have the cinema experience, but not have to suffer multiplex horror, which can be a bit grating sometimes. So, I mean, let's just go to you, Brian, to start off. Is this your first feature?
Yeah, this is my first feature film.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've been directing TV commercials for about 13 years, but this is the first feature, yeah.
Brilliant. And how did this fall into your lap?
Oh, well, actually, I was originally offered the sequel to Severance. Do you remember that, Danny Dyer?
Indeed.
Yeah, it was very good, Severance 2. And that ended up not happening, but the people involved in it thought I might be interested in another project. So they offered me this, and I loved it. And I had worked with Liam on a short film in 2004, I think, to make you feel old there. And I just thought he'd be great in it. So it was, yeah, basically from Severance 2, and then that led on to Liam, etc., etc.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And Liam, can you tell us all a little bit about the mythology behind your character, please? Because it's something very unique.
Yeah, I suppose he is. Well, him being whatever you want to call him, the devil or the Grim Reaper or whatever it may be, I kind of like the idea of him being a good guy, and he kind of is. I mean, he certainly has a moral compass, and he's taken away all these nasty people, and I just like the writing of it. And I like the relationship, and I like the fact that the lead character in it is a there ain't too many strong women leads, apart from like Ripley and Alien and stuff like that, which is quite rare. And I just like that whole Assault on Precinct 13 thing, and the fact that it's all kind of enclosed and there's a theatrical quality to it, and it's operatic in a way, and I just and the production design on it is gorgeous. It was a whole load of things that attracted me to it, and obviously working with Brian and the delightful ladies that we have here. that was a no-brainer. It was all good. It was all good, and it was a joy of a shoot as well, I have to say, and incredibly well organised. And I don't think there's anything out there that's particularly like it as well. It has its kind of own, its own thing going on. I really liked it. Definitely. And I like at the end of it is great. I think it's like Gone with the Wind. There's that kind of I think it's really cool. Yeah, Tara. Yeah, no, it's really good. I love it.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Liam. And Pollyanna, you have to stop going to Scotland. It just never ends well. I
can't help it. It's where I'm from.
No, that was brilliant. I mean, again, a very different role than we've just seen you in earlier tonight, and that we've seen you in White Settlers. And how did you become mixed up with this crazy bunch?
Mixed up with these rebels and rogues. I was sent the script, and then I heard about Brian, and as a friend of mine in Ireland, a great producer said that Brian was the best feature director in Ireland who hadn't made a feature yet.
Brilliant.
And I thought, that sounds good. And if you see his shorts, he'd made 2 shorts that I saw, one with Liam, which was a brilliant sort of Sisk is the character, but is that the title of Screwback? And it was this really kind of great twist to it, kind of gangster style story. And then the other one was Crossing Sawin, which was about a little girl trying to get out of Burma and crossing this great river. So it was an epic scale of a short, but a very different kind of short from Screwback. So it was a very human story and very very character-centric. So I thought, wow, I wonder what he's going to do with this feature. It's just fascinating to me. And again, I wanted to work with Liam. Though now, of course, I never would again. Yeah. And to have a great Scottish cast, Hanna and everyone else that was involved, it's just really exciting. And like you say, she's such a great, there's a lot of vulnerability to her, there's a lot of damage there, but she's also very strong, so there's a lot to play with. And who doesn't want to put on a cop uniform and kick some ass?
Definitely. Definitely.
Are you with me?
Worked for me too, by the way.
Yeah, I figured.
So, Hanna, I'd just like to ask you as well. You must have had quite a lot of fun with that, because you're kind of the mean girl in amongst it all.
I never get to play a mean girl.
Brilliant. Well, you pulled it off fantastically.
Well, we'll see. Thank you. Yeah, it was really exciting to play something that was, I'm either the bruised. A director once said I looked easily bruised, so I don't know if that's a compliment or what the hell that means.
I think it was a comma.
Let's test that, shall we? That theory. I don't know. So it was really. I've never got to do like fighting or anything like that, and I've done a lot of dance and etc. So it was really great to be able to, and just kick ass and be a bitch. It was really good, but to also have to be able to justify it as well. It was really exciting and interesting, and
That's wonderful. Yeah. That's fantastic. I'd just like to jump back to Brian for another minute, please. What I really loved about the film was the morality tale episode, or that element of it. That brings me back to old Twilight Zone and things like that. And I was just wondering, where were you coming from as a storyteller and a director with this?
Well, I suppose for me, the theme is ultimately what goes around comes around, and it is kind of that simple. But I thought, as a kid, I always had this thing, which it was great that Liam said what he said about his character, because we were singing off the same hymn sheet there, which was, as a kid, I always struggled with my Catholic upbringing, this notion that the devil was the bad guy, because if he only took bad people to hell, well, surely a good person has nothing really to worry about, So I kind of struggled with that as a kid. So when it came to this, that's how I saw him immediately. I saw him not as the guy that I'd have to fear, or Pollyanna's character, but everybody else. So I suppose I liked that sort of, in terms of the morality of it, that sort of, it was specifically that take on that type of a character within the film.
That's brilliant. And the use of the ravens or the crows in it, were they sort of buying into the idea of familiars that would have been popular in sort of witchcraft lore and stuff like that, or were they just aesthetically cool?
Well, this is the cool thing about festivals, is you get to find out shit like this, right?
Oh, okay.
There was no crows in the script, right? No crows. So we were shooting the film, and we thought we need something. We had this thing going on with the feathers, and we needed to evolve it a bit more. We had the feathers on the street and on the pillow. So then we had the notion of, we found this beautiful picture of Pollyanna from some photo shoot. And we took her face and we drew the drawing and we put the feathers on it. We thought, okay, we can tie the feathers into the book at the end. And then and we went, well, that's actually not even enough. So we then, after we shot the film, we had this notion anyway that it would end outside the station and that there'd be crows everywhere. Now, unfortunately, the budget meant we didn't actually end up with like 500 crows at the end. We spent them all in the opening, But after we shot the film, it kind of kicks off about 20 odd minutes into the movie, and we were really conscious that we didn't want the audience to forget they were watching a genre movie, and we were concerned that the police procedural stuff you might forget I'm actually in a genre movie here. So we reimagined the opening. The opening we had was about a minute and a half of the ocean, 6 steps up, he walks across the rocks. It went on for ages. It was really beautiful, but it wasn't genre. So we kind of this is a fucking horror movie, so let's cut to the chase and make sure the audience go, I've seen that, I'm going to stay and watch this next 15 minutes before the genre kicks back in. So we kind of reimagined the whole opening and created that sort of, fans of The Fog will probably be familiar with that whole notion of creating something very odd in a very ordinary setting that he did with the pumps going off at the petrol station and that. So kind of a bit of inspiration from that, and created the new opening sequence and brought the crows into it. And they're effectively what I suppose is they follow Six's character wherever he's going, and I suppose you could imagine that they take the souls of the sinners at the end, But that was an evolutionary thing; it wasn't planned originally.
Fantastic. Well, it works well both on an aesthetic level and on a sound design level, because it really draws you in, that sort of incessant cawing. And guys, I'm going to actually give the floor to everybody else for a minute and stop rambling on myself. So does anybody have any questions for anybody involved? Yes, sir. I'm going to use this. So.
It's a question really for Brian and also the cast about working with the physical effects, the fire, the gunshots, the makeup. There's an awful lot going on. Just about the process and the problems involved in all those physical effects on set.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, the guys had to deal with actually acting within them, but from my perspective, a great deal of the fire you saw was real. I'd say 80% of it was real. The rest, we kind of enhanced shots rather than... There wasn't a shot in the film where there was no fire. There was always fire, and then we'd kind of embellish it. The notion being that if you had real fire in it, firstly, you'd know what the fake fire had to look like, and secondly, in your mind, you'd imagine it was all real, you know. So it was. We did literally set fires at that set, and it got quite hot at times. The guys will agree.
It stunk.
Yeah. So from that perspective, that was pretty tough and quite time consuming actually. And that was my biggest fear in the production was that. I think we had 2 days to shoot that whole end sequence, and I was like, how the fuck is this going to look cool with 2 days and setting fire to a set? But I think we pulled it off really well. But the practical stuff, the guys had to deal with the sort of the being thrown around and the squibs, etc., etc. I mean, quite often we had one take, but you know, I think it looks pretty good. The guys might have something to add.
There's nothing to make you make realistic noises than something exploding really close to your head. So, from a method perspective, it was, yeah, exactly.
Actually, when I was killed and I was over that thing, my butt got so hot and I got a burn on my arm. They had to take me out and give me first aid. Remember that day? Yeah. Took me. Yeah. Remember that funny day I got hurt? Yeah, no. You are easily bruised. Well done, love. No.
Anybody else have anything while I'm at? No.
Really? You're all here.
Oh my God. You're also vocal on Twitter and Facebook and everything else. And then when you put them in a real life scenario, everybody just goes, Nobody?
Yeah, the music, was that Carpenter influence? Was that your...
Yeah, listen, I'm a massive fan of electronic music. I make electronic music as a hobby. And the first horror movie I ever saw properly was Halloween. I was about 12, I think, when I saw it. And it really blew me away. It was just something, me and my little brother used to watch it all the time. So I did get into John Carpenter a lot, and as I got older, I really enjoyed his films. But I actually think what makes his films, for me anyway, a lot of what gives his films a really unique quality is the soundtrack. So I kind of knew an electronic score in a horror movie would bring a certain quality to it that I really liked. But also, to be honest with you, as a first film, I wanted to not nail my colours to the mast, but I wanted it to have a voice of its own and feel a little bit different. And while electronic scores are becoming more common, they're not turning up massively in horror movies yet, although I was in Fantastic Fest and I did see a few last week, so it's becoming more common. But it was kind of a nod to Carpenter, because I knew it was going to sound really cool, but it was also a personal thing, that to give it a personality that I felt represented me as a director.
You also talked about not dating the film at all, so it could be set in any time. And
yeah, one thing we
did
did with it, we shot it in 1980s anamorphic lenses, and those lenses are soft even when they're sharp. So I knew the film would have a texture to it that didn't look brand new, which was really important to me. And then in the set design, you may have noticed in the office there's a mixture of LCD panels, cathode ray tubes, the phones, there's no smartphones, there's big old photocopiers, you have a 1980s Volkswagen Scirocco driven by the young kid, you have a modern Mondeo, the doctor is wearing his entire wardrobe is from the 1950s, and Liam's coat was a Victorian coat that was 150 years old or something.
Yeah.
So
the coat was extraordinary. It's the real deal. It was 170 years old or something like that. It smelled like it as well.
But what I was trying to do, and the electronic score feeds back into that, because it's kind of postmodern now, I suppose, having an electronic score, because it was brand new in the 70s, but of course now it's not so much, I was conscious that when you're making low-budget cinema, sometimes, 10 years later, you watch a movie and you go, actually, it feels of its time, because low-budget filmmakers are forced to do things that sometimes reflect the technology that was available. So I wanted to make a movie that 10 years from now, you would go, I can't quite tell when that film was made. So we'll see in 10 years.
And that's a really tricky thing to do when you're not using actual film, and I think it was pulled off really, really well.
Yeah, well, the DOP, Piers McGrail, he's 27 when he shot the film. He's 28 now. He's ancient. Yeah, but I told him what I wanted. He's totally into that whole thing. Alien 3 was a big reference for the film as well. All the tiles on the wall were the mortuary in Alien 3 looks like that. So there was lots of nods there. That's why we used the Lomo Russian lenses, so that it wouldn't have that beautiful crisp. Actually, not beautiful, crisp image of digital photography. That it would have that softness that all 70s movie have. And that's thanks to Piers, the kid of the movie.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because like I said, it is really hard to pull that off, and it's great to see filmmakers trying out different techniques with regard to that to create a new look, because sometimes, especially when you're dealing with films on the sort of mid to lower range budgets, it can show very easily without a little bit of ingenuity behind the camera.
I think it's one of the problems with low-budget filmmaking. It does show up the like you're going to start noticing in 10 years all the movies shot on Canon 5Ds because they have a look, and I wanted to avoid that. And those lenses are cheap. They're not anamorphic lenses are just cheap. The old 80s ones, the Russian ones. So it didn't add anything really to the budget, but it gave it a great look.
Well, that's really exciting to hear, because that's what all the best directors have done. I mean, that's what Robert Wise did with The Haunting when he created those fantastic, forced perspective shots and stuff like that. He was just playing around with new lenses and trying new things. That's wonderful.
And the other thing as well is I avoided handheld photography, which is another thing you're often forced to do with low-budget films. Yeah. And we were lucky enough. There's dolly tracks all over the place in the movie, but I felt if you have the luxury of it, it really ups the production values, and it gave it quite a classical. The filmmaking's quite classical in it, and again, I hoped that would mean the film wouldn't age as quickly.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Brian. So, just one final question for the cast: what would your sort of ultimate highlight of the filming experience have been? If you were to take away one thing, what would it have been from your time on set?
Meeting Liam.
Meeting Liam? No.
Oh, yeah, meeting Liam. It's really great. I'm awkward even now, just in his presence. It's weird. It was the stunts for me. Doing all the action stuff was just really, really fun. It was kind of new for me to do it in the way in which we did it. I'd never worked with fire like that before. Sometimes that was scary, but it just
got really like Sarah Connor towards the end. It was fantastic.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I'll take your references. But just hanging out with these guys as well, like just having a good laugh, because we shot it in Spiddal in the Roger Corman studio in Spiddal. He built this amazing studio in this house that he lived in, but he also set up for filming. So some of the stuff was filmed in his house, some of the stuff was filmed on stages in the studio. And so we're in this like idyllic, cute little place by the sea with wild horses and everyone speaking Gaelic. And there we were kicking ass on fire in the middle of this police station. It's supposedly in Scotland. But we were all staying in little country cottages, and we were all in the same area. So we just cooked lots of good food, danced on lots of carpets. Yeah. He can totally bring in chefs and pretend to cook. It's really cute. It's really cute. It's cute.
It's not about the ingredients, darling. Listen, it's one of those things where you go out on an adventure and there's a kind of a portion of you who wants to be conservative and kind of go, cross all the T's and dot the I's, and then there's another portion of you kind of likes the anarchy of it. So starting off with something like this, and I've always enjoyed doing horror movies. I've done a couple of them, and they're just always different. There's something different about them, and that kind of that operatic thing, that kind of weird gothic kind of feel of them. They're just interesting to do. It's a bit like doing an action movie. It's a different set of muscles, and the horror thing I loved them from 12 years old, going to see Jaws with my dad to the old Christopher Lee Dracula stuff and all that. I've always had a real soft spot for those kind of movies, and this kind of reminded me of them in a sense. And You know, and then you start the adventure, and you hope it'll work out, and you hope you hope everybody pulls their weight, and in this we did. We had a very small budget, and I think the result is certainly definitely exceeds the sum of its parts, and I think, you know, we're quite proud of this. We think it's good. We really like it. We really like it. We hope you do too.
Yeah, I think it's just, I've never shot something where you stay in a, well, technically I guess I have, but to stay in like next door and be like, oh, should we make poppadoms? Or, you know, like that's so nice. And then sit over a glass of wine and be like, I'm freaking out about the scene tomorrow. I've got to do this thing, blah, blah, blah. I've got to say, like, you can fuck that noise. Is that a line? I don't know. And just going over and over in your head. But it's so nice to just go. And then, like, you know, the sparks were living there and the lighting guys were living there. So it's really cool. And you can hang out, and it really it makes it quicker on set, I think, because then by the time you come in, you've done all the work, because we can knock on Brian's door at 3 in the morning and go, I don't really feel this line. Can we change it? But it's amazing. It's really exciting to work like that, and to be like, we had a script, and we had time constraints and stuff, and I think we were still, Brian allowed us to be very free, and that's awesome.
Yeah, we got to play, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Brian, just before I let everybody go. Yeah, no problem at all. Just before I let everybody go, I need to see this again to let it fully sink in. I'm sure quite a lot of people here do as well. So how, when, and where can we get our hands on this?
Soon. I don't know, actually. Yeah. That's being deadly honest with you.
So to be continued.
It's over the States, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we come to Spain next week. It's on. Soon, I mean, next few months. I don't know exactly. Yeah.
Excellent, man.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very much for everybody for coming to Grimmfest, and big round of applause.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks, Colin. Cheers, mate. Well done. Thanks, everybody. Big round of applause. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.